everything is off of belts now, and it's not based on your capabilities and your skill and how disciplined you are, how moral you
And
are,
then
how
the culture,
say
and then
again.
the connection to the culture. I was saying it, and then the connection to the culture, wherein they're, they're making sure that you're counting in Japanese. You're saying these terms in Chinese. You're doing
Right.
this kind of, and now for me, respectfully, I enjoy all that I have encountered, but I have to admit, like, I've had other encounters with my own people wherein they'll tell me, hey, you better be careful with that because, you don't want to, in so many words, scare the white people away. Right. So that's that, because I want to use a theme that is showing my connection to my African warrior identity, respectfully,
Mm,
because I have seen people who've used Viking themes, right, for their establishment, and nobody's questioning that. But if I were to do something, oh, you better be careful, right? So I just
mhm.
wanted to say that since you know, chime in on
Well,
that since you just said that.
yeah, I mean the reason why they're saying that because they dealing on a lower frequency than you, a
Mm,
much more lower frequency than you, and that's why we shouldn't care on what they think because what they think is irrelevant to your being. What they
mm,
think is irrelevant to your frequency. Your frequency is at a much higher level than theirs, and they see it. And the only way you can play on equal playing fields with them is if they bring you down. If they bring you down to their playing level. You get what I'm saying? So
yes,
that
yes, yes,
you
absolutely.
know, that becomes an issue because you have so many of us who will bring themselves down to their playing level, and you really don't have to. It is important for us. It's important for us to stay on our frequency as much as possible. Yeah, we at our job. There's a few masks that we got to put on, you know, but we have to make sure when we come home, we desensitize. We take ourselves away from that, and we come back to ourselves, and we make sure we strengthen those parts within ourselves. Work is one thing. You don't need to we don't need to bring the full warrior package to work. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
You
right.
know, we can lie it dormant for when it's needed, you know. Um, but mentally, yeah, you got to be sharp because you got coworkers that will probably work against you, you know, just to
Yes.
get ahead. There's so many things that are, that we can add on to uh things that go on in the world today, and we just have to be you know spiritual divine warriors walking in our frequency,
Mm.
walk, walking in the
So,
step of our frequency.
mm, powerful, man. So I got two more for you. Really, one is just a bonus question, right? So, last question would be: do you feel the way of the warrior is a necessity today in modern times?
um when you like I was telling you before, um I touched on it. um I correlate warriorship to being a spiritual warrior first, right? um Being a spiritual warrior helps me cover all spectrums, which is the spirit, mind, and body. Now, warriorship, we got but I can't associate it with that. We got warmongers, you know. We got people out here who just want to, they know a certain art, you know, martial arts, and they want to go out there and start hurting people. You know, that's not what we do. You know, we have certain morals and ethics that are associated with our frequency. And if these things are not checked, it can run amok. And this is how people
Yes.
can do, you know, they do start doing heinous things and start hurting people and doing all sorts of heinous things to you know, to the human race, you know, to the human species, which we see today, you know. But in warriorship, we know that in order for us to win, somebody has to lose.
Mm.
You know, when you're talking about warriorship, you know, when you're out there, somebody attacks you, you have no other choice but, you know, to protect yourself. He has to lose. That person has to lose
Right.
in order for you to walk away, you know, alive. You know,
Right.
but that's the same thing with nature. Nature deals on a warriorship type thing, if you really think about it. Because sometimes we would associate certain animals, zoomorphic animals, to the martial arts, like the tiger and the dragon, and you know, the Magi attached the lion and the leopard, you
Mm-hmm.
know, to their understanding of the nature of the warrior. The lion represents the strength. The leopard represents the tenacity and the stealth and the almost like ninja qualities, you would say. And this is where the ninja you know, got it's pretty much where it's very stealthy. You don't hear it coming.
Yeah.
You know, that's the leopard, that's the panther. You don't hear it coming, and when it's on you, it's too late. You know, so when you're talking about dealing with nature, nature is warriorship, and once we deal with the confines of nature, we are we are in our warriorship. You know,
Mm.
the the image behind you, right, which you see that priest, he has the leopard skin on,
Over here.
right,
Let me pull that
behind
up.
you, he has the leopard skin. So the Hemnetter priests were the only ones who were to have the leopard skin. Um, I was blessed by an elder that gave me a leopard skin. You know, I was so blessed by you know a tribe and um, the leopard tooth. So um, because they acknowledge my understanding of nature and my warriorship, as you would say, um, to this particular animal, you know, and that was an honor. You know, that was my award. So that's like getting an Oscar at the award show. You know,
Yeah.
even having my ankh, which is a priest ankh. This is a ceremonial ankh that I was awarded by my elder, chief priest Baba Haru. Um, I was given this ankh and awarded as a priest and a follower of Haru. I also got two other ankhs that I received from my previous shrine by my elder who transitioned some time ago. So, um, yeah, you know, when we're talking about warriorship, this is the importance of being a warrior is knowing your nature and knowing the nature around you. That is the importance of warriorship. You know, and I think I told you this the last time we spoke on the phone. I said the most powerful warrior is the warrior that doesn't like fighting or who tries not to fight at all. You know.
Yes, yes. I remember you told me that. And you know what popped into my head when you said that? You can call it the art of fighting without fighting. That I'm talking about that naturally.
Absolutely.
Popped into my head when you said that was when Bruce Lee said you can call it the art of fighting without fighting. It was like that naturally just popped into my head. I was like, wow. This lets
That's
me know the ancestors got my back. Like you did that.
true warriorship is when you know that when you don't have to fight, you know, there's sometimes you don't fight, you know, there's sometimes you can talk your way out of it if possible, because you're actually saving that person.
Right.
You know, you're actually saving that person. You're like,
And that's just by having a yes, and I was going to say that's actually by being strong minded, right? And you having that kind of capability and practicing kind of brain is because you have a strong, you're strong minded. You're able to make the choice to say, okay, this is not equal. It's no point of me. You know what I mean? This is not my equal, nor is this someone who I can say is a on one hand a threat or superior to me. So there's no use of me trying to engage with is that an example? Does that make sense?
absolutely. And you can get that from the teachings of Ptah-hotep. Ptah-hotep was a vizier who 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 under the royal he was under the royal council, and he was teaching the prince of the Nasut biddies, you know, ethics and how to navigate not only by speaking. I know Mfudishi has touched on this too, where he talked about having good speech, which we call medu nefa, you know, or medu wefa, which means having good speech. Um, because the prince that doesn't have an understanding of vocabulary and good speech and good vocabulary ethics and good understanding of how the world works won't be a good king. You know, he would only be dealing off of impulses and emotions. You know, and Ptah-hotep, the teachings of Ptah-hotep, if you get a chance, you can get that book. It's on Amazon. Uh, teaches the ethics and the morality of how we should conduct ourselves as living warriors on the earth.
Man, so with all that in mind and all that we covered, you know, I've spoken because if I haven't told you, I'm visually impaired, right? Um, I've had a lot of interactions um, with many continental Africans. I mean, so many of them, right? And one of the messages, you know, one thing that I think, you know, caught their attention about me was that I'm willing to hear them, like really receive what they have to say. You know, I'm communicating with them, I'm expressing, and one brother from Ghana told me that I was like the first person that he's met in I forgot how long he said he's been here, but he said I was like the first person that he's never heard curse, never like came off, you know, belligerent, anything like that.
Mm.
And you know, and I told him, well, I'm learning. I'm still learning. I'm not perfect. I'm on a path to perfecting myself, but I really appreciated that. But a lot of what they have said that caught their attention is I'm always talking about uniting. Now we brought up Ninshu Hotep, we brought up Narmer, right? And others. But I think my point is, do you feel based on history and, in my opinion, what those two necessities represented in general was the unification of not just the lands but the people? I mean, do you feel like we as a people, and we may not be able to touch on this right now because I understand it gets deep, but I've heard stories from Brother Jabari, I've heard stories from Infodishi, and I'm pretty sure you have something to say too. Do you feel we should unite in Kemet? Like, would that send some sort of message? Because if we look at the history, we look at the people who did actually unite the lands. What did they do? They united the lands and they got the imposters out. I'm not gonna say no more. Not gonna say no more. I'm just curious about what what you, what you feel about that.
If I'm understanding the question good, so you're just trying to make an association between the uniting of the two lands and how we are today on how we should unite. Um, I think the first step for is this is just my own opinion. It may not, coincide with what Jabari, brother Jabari, or Hemneta Jabari and Hemneta Mfudishi may may say, but because I always reevaluate and think about a lot of things and how can we correlate the ancient practices into living legacy. So we're using the ancient legacy into the living legacy, right? Um, how we live today is not going to be the same as the ancient had lived back then, you know, and we have to be cognizant of that. Um, all we have and all we are right now, we are relearning the we are relearning what we have lost or misplaced, right? And this takes reconstruction. It's a reconstructional
Yes.
process, and it's really not an easy question to answer, but I'm going to answer it the best way I can. During my experience, I've met so many people, and some people didn't have good intentions as I thought they did, so uniting in that way is a whole new thing. So I per se say that we must first unify ourselves. When I say ourselves individually, meaning with how I correlate is the left and the right brain hemisphere, right? Which is associated to the unification of the two lands. Because that's actually what it
Mm.
really what it really meant, spiritually. Because if you look at the temples and the way it's built, it's always fashioned after either a human being, right? The body of a human being. When you look at the temple layouts, they're fashioned head the head to toe. That's how some of the temples are built. Okay. And at the head, which is the Sanctum Sanctorum, or the Holies of Holies, where Amun Ra presides, right? All right. You follow me? At the head.
Yes, yes.
at the head.
Mm-hmm.
So we emphasizing on the mind. We're emphasizing on the temples. In between here are the two temples, right? You have temples here. There's the reason why they call it temples, because this is where your sanctum sanctorium and your holies of holies reside, right here. Okay. And the left and right hemisphere
Wow.
represents the two lands, right? Represents the two lands. And it's important for us to know the significance of both lands. That's why they say upper and lower Kemet. Upper and lower, right? Your blood is the happy river. And where the happy river flows through upper and lower Kemet, right? Upper is south, lower is north, right? And it's the only river that
Mm-hmm.
flows south to north. Okay. Now, the way our blood is, right? You have your heart, which is the happy, and it pumps, right? And it pumps all over to your body. So it flows up north and it flows down south because this is the circulatory system, the circulatory system. And that's why it's so important for us to know who we are as individuals first before we can help others. I can't help you if I don't have myself together. I can't be up here telling you my truths if I didn't have that truth within me. And this is the problem with a lot of the preachers and pastors today. They don't have truth in them, so they mislead their sheep and they mislead their congregation. They mislead their people because they don't have truth within themselves, but they are able to gather these sheeps, right, so to speak. They're no longer lions. you know they no longer have strength. Their minds are weakened, so they're easily being led. But to get back to the point of Samau Tawi, which we call it, the unification of the two lands is called Samau Tawi. Now we have to it's the restoration of the two lands. So we have to restore what was misplaced or lost from the ancient times because it was taken away from us when we were brought here by ship. So
Yes.
we were being dissembled like Asar number. They know our history, so they're gonna break it down to that point where they're able to actually make us dysfunctional in this hemisphere, so we do not excel. But that doesn't stop us. We still excel no matter what here in this country, right? We excel so much. We
Mm.
excel in sports, we excel in technology, we excel in every dang thing that they put forth to us. We excel in. So they really can't stop us from being who we are innately, DNA wise, because what flows through our veins, and you said it yourself, you are connected to Ramesses the Third, by the way, who was in the New World during his time. He traveled over here through the Canary Current from ancient Kemet, from Africa to the Americas.
Woo!
He traveled on the Mississippi. There's documentations that he was here. So there's a reason that, and if your family's from the South or what have you, there could be a possibility that yes, you are a descendant of Ramesses III. Through my lineage, I'm a descendant of Ramesses II because
Woo!
great
Am I
grandfather,
doing that right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. My great grandfather came from Africa. He was the prince from Africa that snuck on a trading ship along with his brothers and sisters, because during that time they had tribal wars in Zambia, because that's where my great grandfather's from. So one of them went to the island of Grenada, the other one went to Trinidad, and the other one went to Jamaica. So I have cousins that I know from Trinidad, and I have cousins that I know from Jamaica to this day. So how I know that's true? Because my grandmother passed that down to me verbally. So a lot of the information, especially when Africans are concerned, we pass things down verbally. We hardly wrote things down. Everything was passed down from word of mouth. So that's how we lost the connection. Africans in America lost the connection to the continent. Um, Now the only thing we know is this, this disassembled understanding of life in America. The things we all we know is the traumatic aspects of life in America, right? We have no connection to Africa because they severed that connection. That's why we have to go into African ancestry to find out who we are. Like if you can speak to an African right now, he'll go back thousands of years. Just based off of he said he'll break it down to you, thousands of years. But we
Right.
we have
Because it's
we
in
have
their language more than likely, right? I'm sorry.
no. Yeah, yeah. So we have a severed connection now, and that's why you have so many Africans descendants now who are not claiming African ancestry. They want to claim indigenous ADOS and all of these other uh, um,
Yep.
claims that they're claiming, and they don't really realize the history behind that. Okay, we know that the African was here first before Christopher Columbus. We know that 20,000 years ago they migrated from Africa to the Americas. We already know that. Okay, but when the conquistadors came through and all these other, they wiped them out. Even the Mongolians that came from Asia wiped those indigenous Africans out. So
And then
the,
they made themselves look like they
they
were
themselves
those
like
people.
are the true natives, and they are in a way, but not more native
Right.
than us. So I see where they're getting at from, but they are misconstruing a lot of the things that was associated because a lot of those people were wiped out. They were wiped out.
Right.
When Christopher Columbus came here, he thought he was somewhere else
India.
in India.
Right.
He seen all these black people that was over here. And you can see it in the Mayan temples. You see the pigmentation of those black people with big noses. You see the colossal negroid faces of the Olmecs. You see that,
Mm.
and even the ancient Kemites built a civilization over here in the Grand Canyons, carved in the caves. So, and
Wow.
when they brought the slaves over here, right? They dismembered them like Asar. They dismembered their minds. They took their
Yes.
religion, their God, their language, everything associated to culture, and gave them a traumatic culture. You know, gave them their
Mm.
religion, gave them their language. That dismembered us. So it's important for us to
Mm.
become a star. That's why I say we have to look within first. We have to see who we are first before we start helping others, because we are doing a disservice to people if we don't have self together before we start actually helping others. We are doing a disservice
Mm.
to nature. We are doing a disservice to the divine. The divine wants to see you have yourself in place first. Your well has to be full in order
Mm.
for you, in order for others to drink from it. And
Mm.
if there's nothing to give, you have nothing to give. You have to replenish yourself first before you come out, you know. So I think this is where the misunderstanding comes from. I know I kind of like jumped where the dismemberment of the African who came here. Um, uh, those Africans who were warriors, right? Who were warriors, were burning
Right.
up. They were burning up plantations. They were doing what they were supposed to do because they were working in the confines of Ma'at. Okay, they dealt with truth, justice,
Mm.
reciprocity because they knew that these people here weren't about truth. They were against truth. They were isfet, what we call isfet, which dealing with
Chaotic. Chaos.
chaotic and evilness. Okay,
Mm.
so the enemy of Ma'at is isfet. So they were working in the confines of Ma'at. So when they joined up with the remaining Native Americans that were there, you know, because they were weakened, because their populations were being deleted. Okay,
Yes.
and they were smart enough to say, no, look, we need to join up with the Maroons that escaped from slavery. We need to join up with them and become a nation. So this is where the Gullah Wars and the Seminole Nation came from. Okay, people think the Civil War was what stopped
Mm.
slavery. It was the Gullah Wars, the Seminole Nations. They were constantly fighting for almost decades, decades. And so if you look in the Gullah Nation, my mother happens to be Gullah Geechee, and she comes from that area where they have, and they can tell you right now, they have African lineage. Okay, they associate with the foods, the baskets that they make, all come from Africa. So that proves right there that we come from an African lineage. You get what I'm saying? So when you have these people coming in and claiming indigenous aboriginals, like, to what extent the Cherokees were enslaving Africans in this country? They were a part of that. Okay.
And even when you say indigenous, aboriginal, the gene is in there somewhere, right? So are they saying that their genes began here? I mean, isn't that ultimately what they're saying? But you're saying that no, we're descendants of people who, yes, were here first, but oh man, we could go on and on and about this, but please
Look, look,
continue because it just
two
popped into my
million,
mind. I was just like, wow.
almost 2 to 5 million Africans were brought to this country. 2 to 5 million during the time of the transatlantic slave trade.
Mm.
Millions of them, um, a million of them escaped, you would say, to the Maroon or to Haiti. They were able to go. Some of them went back to Haiti just as well, um, because as we know, the Haitians were the warriors. They were the one fighting off every European um, um, nation that came over there. That's why today they're being shitted on. Excuse my French, my German. Sorry.
Yeah, they're
Uh,
being punished. No, no, I understand. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So, and even now in the Gullah Geechees, the Seychelles Islands, they're trying to take away their land as we speak today. Trying to punish them for the past things and the past things that they did, and the resistance. So we have to put our priorities in, and this is what I'm saying. When they do this, they are disassembling us again. They are dissevering the body of Asar again when they try to divide us,
Mm.
separate us. all of these, everybody want to claim this, but nobody wants to be African. Nobody wants to be African. When Africans were the first pyramid builders, Africans were the first civilization, Africans were the first everything, okay? But just because we were, severed from it from historically, right? These people want to be Hebrew Israelites, you know. And I got something for that too, Hebrew Israelites. I mean, like, come on, it's like this is ridiculous. You call yourself Israelite, but the only thing stopping Israel from being in Africa is the Suez Canal, a man-made canal. Like, where are our priorities? It's like we're so caught up in the semantics of history, we don't even know who we are. We are all of those people, yes, right? But we come from a common ground, and our genealogy comes from the motherland. It comes from Africa. And until we understand that, we always going to be chasing our tails. We're always going to be rolling around in that hamster wheel like this,
Yes.
But that's why I say it is important
Yes.
to look within, because within you will find the answer. We can't do anything. We can't do anything without consulting ourselves first. We make the choices by consulting ourselves, right? Asking the questions to ourselves and making the choice to say, well, then yay or nay, But that comes from within. In order to replenish ourselves, it comes from within. Everything comes from within. Like, there's no outside thing can help you unless you want to be helped, Like us talking and people listening and what have you, it can't, it won't go anywhere unless something inside you says, yo, look, what he's saying is absolutely right. What he's saying is true. And how could I associate that to myself and put that into practical use, But that is the hard part, because we don't trust ourselves. They have made us not to trust ourselves. They made us to trust things outside of ourselves, like trusting this mythical God that we pray to, that we so long have been praying to for centuries, that doesn't exist. The same God that they came and they gave us, like they say, they gave us the Bible in Africa and they took our lands once we closed our eyes and prayed. They gave us the Bible and they got our land. So they gave us the Bible, now they got our minds. These are the two lands that they're referring to.
Okay. you was already there, because I was about to say, That's why I asked the question, because I was like,
these are the lands they were referring to. Was once they got the mind of the African, they were able to get the land very easily. Okay. So it comes from within. It starts from within. So
yes, sir.
It is important for us to know that first. And then we'll one day we'll get it together. We don't know when that time will come, because even they said it in their book. No one knows the time nor place.
Right.
No one knows. But we know we do it has to happen one day, and it will.
Right.
Maybe not.
Why do you? This is the last question in closing. In closing, right? Because you just made me think about something real quick. Him that's real quick. So, with that in consideration, should we? Is this a start wherein we find common identity, right? Because I think that's why I was asking the question, should we unite in that? Because when I think of Kemet and just spirituality in general, I think of spiritual symbolism, and a lot of these things that I've seen symbolizes something to me. Like when I think of Menchu Hotep, when I think of Narmer, when I think of uh Ramesses, all these people who showed me, look, we got to get these imposters out of here. and unite our lands. Like, you know, so I guess is this a start, because that's what my attempt at doing this is, as far as the warrior identity, um it being a necessity, and us having a common identity so we can share common grounds, and then ultimately we will be empowered. We will have a power, a nation, a people, right? So with this, something like this, us speaking to each other and our distant relatives, do you feel as though this is the start as far as looking within, and then moving forward?
Um, right now, and I say this um, cosmic in a cosmic sense, we are in the, for those of high frequency, already in the Aquarian age, right? We are coming cosmic
Mm.
out of the Pisces to the Aquarian age. The Pisces age is of belief is ending. So it's every 2,600 years, right? Every 2,600 years, a new age is emerging cosmically. Okay. Uh, I remember years ago I used to see the fish on back of people's car with the cross and stuff like that. That represents Pisces, and the fish is associated to Christ and what have you. But it's more so cosmically, but they don't even know it because they deal in a much lower frequency. They don't even understand the whole concept behind that. So they just believe what has been said and taught to them, right? They just take it as is without any question. Because I remember growing up, I used to ask a lot of questions in the church. I'm like, well, why is Jesus white? Well, why does he look like this? He's scary to me. you know it's like I can't look at his blue eyes and take him seriously. I was terrified of him. I'm like, he's supposed to be the savior,
Mm.
and I'm so scared of looking at him when I was a child. you know it didn't make sense to me. So, but they were operating on a sense of belief. Okay. And with belief, you don't question anything. We are coming in, like I said, we are coming into the Aquarian age. The Aquarian age is the age of information, is the age of knowledge. People are awakening, okay? They are awakening from the slumber. But you see what's happening is Fetians have a net. They're going to catch a couple of us, you know, while we're making the transition out of the belief stage, going into the information stages of life and understanding. So that's why you have these different groups coming out of nowhere saying that they're indigenous and Ados and Hebrew Israelites and all of these different groups to separate and sever us. When they talk about the 12 tribes of Israel, I mean, all they are talking about is the body of Asar
Mm.
and Jesus being the 13th piece. That is a significant piece. Like you go into certain buildings, they don't have the number 13 on there because they associate the number 13 as an evil number. Just to
Right.
take you away from the understanding. Just like they do with African cosmology. They demonize it so much to make it think like, yo, it comes from the devil. And not realizing, no, it's the actual opposite. It's the
Yeah.
it's the opposite. So to to answer the question as far as how we symbolize things, and it's important for us to stop looking at just the symbols of things, because that's dealing on a source of belief. We have to look at the meaning, the inner meaning, which is called symptomatic thought. With symptomatic thought, we are able to break down what we're seeing as the symbol and break it down into components where we can use it as a practical way of going about our daily life and ritual. We have to constantly form an inner ritual within ourselves in order for us to strengthen ourselves. Okay, whether that's we brush our teeth in the morning, that's a ritual, right? We wash our face in the morning, that's a ritual. So we have to start ritualizing our understanding of what will help us in life, meaning our African cosmology, our African culture, that has to be ritualized within us. Whether it's saying a chant to yourself every morning, and you never go astray of saying these chants, you say it all the time. One of the chants that I would say, um, well, I would say in the morning, I would say the prayers of Amen. And it goes, I'm just going to say a little bit. Adoration to thee, O Amen Ra. Adoration to thee, O Amen Ra. Wow, I guess I'm stuck on but it's I just give homage to the creator every day, just knowing that he's giving me new life every day, you know, as I resurrect from the slumber and sleep. And now I am I I am what the Christians say, um I live, or I, I the sun resurrects every day, and not the SON, it's the SUN.
Mhm.
This is symptomatic thought because they've been taught to think a certain way symbolically and not understand the true meaning of what it really entails. And I think this is where we misconstrue who we are and what we're here to do, as individuals first. Because like they say, like minds think alike. They don't say that, they say that for a reason. Because if like minds think alike, that means now we're united because we think the same. So
Wow.
that has to happen first. So mentally that has to happen. And until we start tapping into ourselves and tapping into who we are, it's going to be a long fight, you know. But I would have to say, yes, we are making some type of progress. Any progress is good progress. From the way it used to be and now, yeah, I would have to say it's progress. But there's still a lot more to go, you know.
Yes, yes. Man, brother, I greatly appreciate the time and
You're more than welcome.
all the knowledge and wisdom. This was definitely a powerful and learning experience for me. Man, I can't wait for the next go round. And I won't keep you for any more of your time. I just want to say again, thank you. It was an honor, and man, I want to make sure I'm not leaving anything out because, like, I'm still so new to this. How about this? Is there anything you would like to share in terms of contact information, anything that you would like to share to everyone.
Well, you can follow me on Instagram at E_Asar1, Asar one, number one. So you can also follow me on Instagram, Asarion. That's ASAREON. Adasar or Adasarion on Instagram. You can follow me at Eric Asarion on Facebook. If you know, that's ERIQASAREON on Facebook just as well. I'm currently getting the website and everything together now. I also have 2 songs that are out on Spotify just as well. Um, one of them is called Pull Up. The other one is called They Didn't Tell You. You can go on Spotify. You can look me up on Bandcamp just as well. I'm on that. I'm on those platforms. And, I'm also an MC just as well. So I got those lyrical skills, uh, where,
Okay, I'm gonna have to. You gonna have to put. You know what I mean? You gonna have to get me right. You know what I mean? I'm done. I'm retired. I don't even know how that other video I did slipped out here, but
uh, but I keep it going because the hip hop that's another culture within itself, and
yes,
that was a culture also that helped liberate us when we were running amok in the streets of New York, and it expanded throughout every
respect.
house in the Americas, and down south, DC, Maryland, Virginia. It expanded. So we are all one nation now. We no longer separate.
Yes,
In the hip hop nation brought us together, and we can all relate to that. Um, and that was a culture within itself that helped bring us together and unite. So like again, the Samal Tawi, it was the restoration of the 2 lands. It was bringing people together, for a common ground, and of course, capitalization and these greedy capitalists took it and distorted our culture and effed it up. So now it's up to us, the warriors, to come back out and actually, you know, uh, um, put that information out again to our people. You know, so that's what I'm
mm,
doing.
wow.
Mhm.
You might have just nudged me a little bit. You don't even know it. you might
But
you might be bringing me back out with that kind of message right there.
it's all about uniting, right? So if like minds is able to
Yes.
catch on to that frequency, then anything that I'm saying or what have you, like I tell people, I'm just the messenger, I'm, you know, um, and you can do the same, you know, you can do the same. So again, yes, my
Yes. Yes.
my 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 Instagram is Asar. I'm sorry, E_Asar_EON number 1 on Instagram. And again, I have two actual address Instagram addresses also, and that's Asarion. That's ASAREON on Instagram, and Eric Asarion on Facebook. So you can follow me there.
Awesome. All right. Well, I greatly appreciate it, and you can close us out. You can close us out, brother. And next.
Okay. Um, I'm gonna say a few chants. Wabasim Amin Ra, Ridik Amin Ra, Nizarak Amin Ra, Nutatina Amin Ra, Nuk Amin Ra. What I'm saying, show thy face, Amin Ra, bless and purify us all, Nebu, Dua. Thank you for having me on the show.
Wow. Thank you.
And just, just giving me an opportunity to actually, tell my truth. And this is what it's all about. And I thank you. Dua.
Thank you. Peace.
Peace. Hotep.